Does everyone deserve a second chance? Even if you've done something so destructive, so evil, you call yourself a monster. Should you isolate yourself from everything and everyone? Should you try to find redemption, or should you choose isolation? Should you get a second chance? This is Kratos' story, a god who calls himself a monster, someone who acknowledges the things he did were awful. Although he did have good reason to do it, the things he's done he looks back on with nothing but regret. But that leads to the most powerful scene in God of War Ragnarok. Before we talk about that scene, we need to do some build up. After the events of God of War 3, Kratos wanted to be alone, by himself. He traveled endlessly through the Fallen God comics looking for a place far from everything. A place to spend the rest of his immortal days alone. And even though he traveled very far, even going months without sleeping, he ends up just getting used again. When he arrives in Scandinavia, according to the book Lore and Legends, he spends over 100 years by himself with creatures and monsters. This is the path of isolation. Kratos believes he's a monster. He isn't looking for love or a family. He isn't looking to be forgiven. He's looking for a place to be alone. He encounters Faye for the first time in centuries, another person. He forms a bond with this woman and eventually starts a family together. Kratos, always living alone at this point, has now formed a new bond with one person. And with the birth of his son, that one bond becomes two. 12 years after the birth of his son, the two go out on an adventure to spread Faye's ashes where they come across Brok. Although not friends, Brok helps Kratos, making him stronger because Brok is the one that created the axe for Faye, and Faye gave that axe to Kratos. Whether Kratos wants this bond or not, he now has 3 bonds. His late wife, his son, and Brok. Later he meets Sindri, Brok's brother, and he was an admirer of Faye. 4. Then he meets Freya, a witch in the forest who assists Kratos. 5. He then meets Mimir in a tree. Mimir eventually becomes his brother, making this 6 bonds he now has. Although someone who hates themselves for his past now has bonds he never thought he would ever have. When Ragnarok comes around, he has formed so many bonds with so many people. Freya's brother in his group, Durlin, and so many more. Kratos' allies grow and grow. Kratos is a god who was once bitter with all of these people forcing themselves onto him, and in God of War Ragnarok, there are so many who rely on him. But there is one bond that is special, and that's with Brok. If Mimir is his brother and Atreus is his son, Brok is no doubt Kratos' best friend. With the way Brok talks to Kratos like he doesn't give a fuck what Kratos thinks, the way they banter back and forth sometimes is really amazing, and what they did with Brok as a character leads to what I think is the most powerful scene in God of War Ragnarok. No, not Brok's death. That scene has been talked about and overplayed to death, and everyone, and I mean everyone, talks about this scene. But that's not the scene I want to focus on. Instead, I want to focus on the part not about his death, but about his life, or the scene where he finds out the truth about his life. Kratos, a god who once seeked so much devastation, who seeked isolation, sees his best friend angry and upset because he found out he died in the past. Kratos does something I would have never expected him to do. To comfort Brok, he asks Brok to bless the spear. When Brok is hesitant to do so, Kratos gets on one knee, holding the spear out for him to bless it. This is the same god that bashed in the skull of Hercules. This is the same god who destroyed an entire pantheon. The god who left looking for a place to be alone for the rest of his existence. A man who once thought he had no future is showing his love for a friend. And Kratos is not the only reason why this scene is so strong. Not at all. It's Brok as well. Before we make it to the mermaid to get the spear, Brok couldn't stop talking about how excited he was to meet the mermaid. The way he talked about this mermaid, he was so happy, and well, I think the players were happy for him. But when he got there, she didn't even acknowledge his presence. I admit, I wanted to tear up seeing this, how distraught Brok was. We just got a new spear that made him excited and made me excited, but Brok's mood made me conflicted. What the hell was the goal with this scene? Was I supposed to be happy we got a new weapon, or sad for Brok? And when Kratos got on one knee asking Brok to bless the spear, I knew what Santa Monica wanted out of me. Joy. Pure joy. I wanted to show a quote from Eric Williams and why they killed Brok.
So, yeah.
So
heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I mean, I know Corey kind of gave you those 3 things. Was it always meant to be Brok? And like, why did he have to die? Why did someone have to die?
Corey, when he told me that, he goes, do you know why? And I was like, yeah, I remember the conversation we had years ago in 2018 that Brok was the family dog. That was the inspiration.
Oh, God.
That is
Okay.
evil, man.
But that's why it
Not
hurts.
happy enough with killing a wolf at the very beginning.
We didn't kill him.
Well, he
Oh,
came back.
he
Well,
came
I
back,
mean,
yeah.
you tell that to my tears. But
The family dog means someone everyone cares about, someone everybody wants to protect, someone who everybody loves. And when Brok died, Kratos was now on board with Ragnarok, and you, the player, the writer's intentions was for everybody to be aboard Ragnarok and want it to happen, to destroy Odin for what he did to our beloved character. Every character in the game loved Brok. God of War fans loved Brok. And out of all people, I'm sure, Kratos loved Brok. This was the most powerful scene in God of War Ragnarok.